Season 1 of Written in Stone, the 1990s, is supported by Tension Climbing, wooden training tools designed with purpose in Denver, Colorado. Use the code STONE, that's STONE, to get 10% off of your next purchase at tensionclimbing.com and to let them know that their support for this show matters. Not valid for tension board sets, hardware, or gift cards. Cannot be combined with other offers. Tensionclimbing.com. Mastery over success. Over 150 days, 250 tries, dedication, perseverance, history. You might say it was in his DNA. If there's one area in all of France that's more storied than any other, more important to the climbing culture, it has to be the Verdon Gorge. Every French legend has made their mark on these perfectly sculpted limestone walls, and you wouldn't be far off if you characterized its climbing as old school. But that also doesn't tell the entire story. And that's because high above Europe's deepest gorge is a cave of epic proportions. And this cave holds the most impressive and most modern of the French test pieces. And in the summer of 2019, Seb Bouin had just finished his project, the hardest in France, but knew he wanted more challenge. And in this cave was another line, yet to be bolted. It was close to his home, the crag he knew better than any other, and it might just be his hardest yet. It might be the hardest yet. So that summer, Seb Bouin put the bolts in and soon began trying the moves. Extended efforts over the next 3 years followed, but the pinches, tufas, and pockets were about as close to just enough as actually exists, and the code resisted cracking. On a trip in spring of 2022, he spent 2 weeks getting reacquainted with the moves. By the time good conditions arrived, he felt tired and was getting stressed. But he began up the route and noticed that he felt like he was flying. It was effortless. He stuck the crux, and then, as they tend to do, the doubts began to creep in. So much hard climbing to go, so many opportunities for catastrophic mistakes that could end this attempt in a second. But he didn't give in to the doubts. He executed the moves exactly as he had practiced hundreds of times before, and suddenly, he was clipping the chains of DNA, the hardest route in France, and possibly the hardest route in the world. Seb, welcome to Written in Stone. I'm glad we were able to make this thing happen, man.
Yeah, nice. Thanks to invite me.
Yeah, before we get started in talking about Akira, I have a funny question for you. So, Gilbert Tribou famously removed a crux hold from Les Spécialistes, also in the Verdon, so that Patrick Edlanger couldn't send while Gilbert, was away. And then he reattached it when he returned so that he could get the first ascent. So the question is, let's say you were working on DNA and there was someone else gunning for it as well. If you had to remove one hold and then put it back later so that they couldn't do it, hand or foot hold, which hold would it be? Tell me about that hold and why it's important.
I think if you take out, like, there are two main crux. If you take out the on the first crux, the left pinch, it will be super hard to go on the right too far. Where Jacob Schubert is quite extend on this move. If you take out this one, for sure, no chance.
All right, that's it then. Take out that left-hand pinch, and it's nobody. Nobody's doing it.
No, for sure. But hopefully, we are living like in a better period for hardcore climbing. Everyone is fine, and I will be happy to see someone else doing the route with me.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things I appreciate about you and about modern climbing in general is that everybody's so collaborative and working together and working on each other's projects. I think that's really a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I think it's a lot of cooperation in high-level climbing today. And I think it's pushing us like far away. I was
Yeah.
climbing a lot with Adam and other climbers, and it was like super inspiring more than competitive.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I want to start with your vintage rock tour a little bit. I really loved watching it, and I'll be linking it in the show notes so that everyone listening can go watch it. What made you want to set out on that tour to begin with?
Well, I would say to know my history. I'm from France, and there is like a big climbing history behind me, and it was super important for me to discover it, and also to meet like the people who made the history.
Mm.
So yeah, it was like I need that for growing up as a professional climber to know, yeah, the roots, the mentality, and yeah, the evolution of climbing.
Yeah. Why did you think it was important for you to know that history?
Mm, but for different reasons, like to know like the purely like the climbing style, how it evolves in the time. Like and for grading also, it was super important because I did all the routes, all the first step in every grade.
Mm.
So it was super important because sometimes it's really far away from the one we have. Like some 80s from the 90s are really harder than the 80s from now. Basically, yeah, there is like kind of hardcore grade in the first 80, 8B, 8C. It was quite hard for the time. And then it becomes smoother with the time and the evolution. Now I think if you compare 80 from Spain and the first French 80, it's definitely not the same feeling.
Yeah,
So
I imagine so. Um, France has such a rich climbing history. They were so important, especially in the advent of sport climbing and the way that we're engaging in sport climbing now. So that's one of the things I really appreciated about the Vintage Rock Tour was talking to these people who were really inventing the
yeah,
way that we're climbing now. That was really neat to see.
yeah. For me, it was really important because I am not competing. It's what I am doing. My sport, this spirit, this special spirit to be outside with your friend and projecting in something super hard and training around. They invented this sport basically. So meeting JP Tribu, Marc Le Menestrel, Antoine Le Menestrel, and Fred Rouhling and other people. Like it was just they just invented the game. So it was super important for me to understand why and how.
Yeah, I love that, and I love that you included Fred in that group. Um,
Personally, I didn't meet Fred, but we were in contact about Akira and the other routes he made.
yeah, I love that you include him in the group of the Les Menestrels and Tribu and the pioneers of French sport climbing. And I included Akira in this season of Written in Stone, not just because it was a major story and a big controversy in the 90s, but because I really think it was an inescapable and integral part of climbers exploring the ninth grade in the 90s. Like that, he was one of the first people to suggest a big leap in grades like that. And I think that's really important. In 2021, you went and did the second ascent. And after so much controversy around the route, what made you want to go and do it?
Well, basically, we were doing our vintage World Tour, and the goal was to go from the first 8A to the first 9A, and Akira was just around. It was like the first 9A was a hug from Fred, and we say, oh, we can't go there and and don't try Akira. We have to try this route. It's so mythical and so with a friend like Lucien Martinez, he's like taking care of the Grand Prix magazine. We went there and we did both of them. So it was super cool because I did like the 3 routes from Fred, Hugh, the l'autre côté du ciel, and Akira, and basically we agreed on the fact like that these 3 routes are around 90 and not more, not less. So at the time it was a really good step from the French climbing history. It just invented the 3 first 90s in the country, and basically Fred was a bit sad that we said Akira is basically not a 9B route, but behind the grades there is like this story, and this story is so cool. He just push the limit, even if it's not that hard. It's a really good step for our climbing history, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I messaged a little bit with Fred, and um, you're right. He's definitely a little sad that the grade didn't turn out to be what he thought it was. Can we talk a little bit about um, what you think might be in the difference between the grades? You know, I have my own thoughts, but obviously I haven't gone and climbed the route. But I have some ideas as to why the grade disparity might exist. So, what do you think is in there?
You mean about Akira?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think different things. Before everything, we made the route without Nipad.
Yep.
So it changed. We wanted to keep the spirit and made the same thing than Fred. So I think our climbing style is basically different than the climbing style from the 90s. So this changed a lot, I think, because we are used to climbing big overhang with drop knee bars and everything. Then Fred was saying he was not using like a lot of crash pads for climbing this route. So this changed a bit because once I just left and fell on the back and I was like, whoosh.
Yeah.
It's quite high. I think it's 3 meters, 3.5. So I don't really know in feet, but it's quite high. So when you fall, you feel it.
Yeah.
So that changed a bit the game. Yeah, I think there is something special when you make a first ascent. You walk it more, like you have to believe more on it, and the first ascent process is always harder, and I know it perfectly.
Yeah.
So I can imagine there is like you can do a mistake on the grade, and this is not a problem. The problem is more like the next ones who don't tell nothing about it. So I think every climber should give his opinion on a grade. That's super important because we are athletes and judge at the same time. So if we don't give our opinion, the graduation of our difficulty in climbing doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think you just hit on, something that I think this story sort of leads us to when we look at it is that um, Fred might have gotten the grade wrong, but it was really unfair of people to ostracize him from climbing just because they didn't think the grade could be correct. And in the episode about Akira, I quote Alex Huber talking about climbing not having referees or judges. But he and many others at the time sort of took the role of judge against Fred. And in a climbing magazine interview, you're quoted as saying, "Our sport is beautiful because we don't need judges. We are the judges. It's beautiful, but at the same time, quite hard in this kind of situation, at the very cutting edge. That's why I would love to invite the world's top climbers to come and give DNA a go." Why do you think it took so long for someone to come and repeat Akira, considering its fame or infamy?
I maybe different thing. Maybe the route is somewhere not so popular. I mean, it's in a cave. You have to find a cave. It's super like dark, and yeah, it's not so much attractive, I think. And then it could be a bit for the time hard to imagine such a big roof, and train for this and put effort on this thing when I don't know, people are giving more hard routes on vertical walls or something like that.
Fred's climbing style might have been sort of like the Chris Sharma before Chris Sharma. He was so explosive and he had this jumpy style that I didn't see back then.
I think it was like a gymnastic climbing from Fred, and he was really, it was his things. But at the same time, for me, about what happened about Akira, I would say too much talk for not enough climbing in the route. If you want to talk about the route, just go on it and then talk.
Yeah.
I think also having such a big gap between the 9A and 9B and not proposing 9A plus, it was a bit hardcore in the graduation of climbing.
Yeah, I think so. When you went to try it, did it look like anyone else had been trying it, or was it just forgotten in that cave?
Forgotten. Like a spider on the old. Like I took an hour to find the cave, nothing to find the cave. No. So for sure, nobody was climbing there.
Wow, that's fascinating. And it's been done a few times since you. I know Lucien did it right after you did, and then I believe someone else has done it since. Is that right?
Yeah. I think there was like a wave after us, like coming and saying, "Oh, this route is cool," basically. So it should be nice to try it.
In the episode, I talk about. I wish that people had just gone and really put effort into trying the route at the time, and maybe then we would have seen that Fred Rouhling might have been the best climber in the world at the time. He was certainly putting up more hard routes than almost anyone at that time.
In his climbing style, I think.
Yeah.
It was not like... I think that's why other people were saying, hey, you never repeated any of my routes, or you never changed your climbing style to do something else. So surely he was super strong in his things, but people were saying just, hey man, just come on Action Direct or something else.
Yeah, that's important to point out that he wasn't as strong in the style of the day. His style was sort of ahead of his time. In terms of what he was climbing on. And you went and, like you said, you went and did his other routes. So you did all three of his routes there. From the photos and videos, I know Akira's in a different town, but Eau Claire, where the other two routes are, looks like this little picturesque town surrounded by steep limestone right next to the road. Is that what it's like?
Yeah, exactly. It's quite fun. You have not to walk, and there is like this huge and steep overhang where he just basically drilled the hold.
Yeah.
It made something for him, like something hard, and saying, "Oh, I want to create the hardest route possible." So he did it. So I have no judgment about that, because it was another time and another vision of the sport.
Right.
But he did something spectacular, especially with the lot of Côté du Ciel, where you have like this 2-finger pocket to get and then like face to the sky and just cross over on the 2-finger pocket. That's a super fun and cool route, and now iconic route. So it's part of our climbing history.
Was L'Autre Côté the hardest one for you of the three?
No, for me it was Akira. But I made this route with Lucien Martinez, a friend from France, and for him it was de l'autre côté du ciel. So basically we found a consensus on the 9A for every route. And I think it's a right grade, actually, if you compare to other routes.
Yeah, I think that's really fascinating that he was putting up those style 9As basically in a vacuum, by himself over there in this little town in France. I think it's wonderful.
But I mean, he was living there, so he was a bit
Yeah.
his climbing home climbing wall, maybe to train and just like to create hard routes. Um, when you are living near a crag or near a place, I think it's a bit easier to imagine something really above your limit because you don't really care about moving, about season. You are just like here and having fun on trying something super hardcore.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that it's, there must be climbers out there who live in these places that aren't part of the, like, what the media is paying attention to, who are just monsters on
Yeah.
their own style at their own area, and we just aren't hearing about them. I think that's really cool.
I will not try DNA in another country, I think.
Mm.
It was like near my home. I knew the crag since 10 years and I was like, okay, here I can process on this route.
Yeah. Who do you think has the best chance of repeating DNA right now?
I don't know. Only Jacob tried it, but he should improve a bit on the knee bars, I think, to repeat it. But for sure, Adam has a lot of potential, and it's every climber, but they need just to take the time, and
Yeah.
put the effort on it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see somebody put that kind of effort in. I think repeating the hard routes is a really important part of this. Not just doing the first ascents of things, but also repeating and consolidating the grades. And I think
Yeah.
that's ultimately what pushes the sport forward.
Yeah, and I think it's basically what did Fred Rouhling? He was like putting his hard route because it was his style and his inspiration. DNA was my climbing style, but for example, going into bibliography was a great effort from my side because it's definitely not my climbing style, and I wanted like, oh, Alex did something hard in France, I should try it.
Yeah, yeah. When you did DNA, you were a little hesitant to give it the grade that you did, and ultimately, you did give it the bigger grade. And I'm curious, why the hesitancy?
Because I was not sure about myself.
Mm,
I never tried seriously silence before, so it was hard to compare because there was only 190 on Earth. So giving a grade of 90 is a big. It's super important to be clear in your mind. So I just take a list of what should why 90 plus or why 90, and I came at the end to the 90 because of like the time and the effort put in, more than 3 seasons and a lot of tries, the climbing style, knowing the crag perfectly, and yeah, and then also all the other routes I graded on this crag were never repeated, and I think the grade is quite hard for this route, and comparing to this route, DNA should be 90. So I was like, but even with all these details, it was hard to give it because it's something important, and
yeah.
and I don't want to be wrong on this. So I'm still pretty psyched to see Jacob or Adam or Alex or someone else trying it and giving his opinion about the line and the grade. Obviously, Jacob did it on his he tried it, I think, a little week, 5 days or something like that. He did a video about that, and I think, yeah, he gave a bit. At least he said the line is really cool, so I'm happy about that. And also, yeah, I think he should try it more seriously to have a clear idea about a 90 or a 90 plus, but trying a bit big in flat anger and also a bit silence, and yeah, I think it could be 90. But as every route, we are waiting for someone else to give his opinion.
It seems like such a difficult thing at the cutting edge of the sport to give that grade. And I think it's a lot harder than a lot of people think because it's not a sure thing. It's not
It's a big responsibility.
Exactly. Yeah. You're part of moving the sport forward with Adam and with Alex and with Jakob and with everyone else, Stefano, who's
Yeah,
pushing these grades. So I really think it's lovely that all of you are collaborating on these things and talking to each other about these things. And maybe that was happening in the 90s too, but it seems now looking back at it that there was a little more competition and a little
yeah.
less collaboration.
When just before I took some days to think about the grade, and I just called Adam and say, Adam, I should talk with you because
Mm,
I don't really know. Yeah, there is something, I have a decision to take. And so I was talking with Adam. I also sent a message to Alex, just, yeah, to be open. And I think it was, yeah, now it's more about cooperation. And even if I don't know, Jacob Schubert is doing the route and saying, "Oh, it's more 9B+," and I will be happy. I can't be sad about this. It's just the sport and his opinion. So I will do the next one harder, and that's it.
yeah, I love that attitude, Seb. I think so many people attach the grades to their identity as if it's a reflection of them instead of a reflection of the difficulty of the route. So a downgrade almost feels like an insult to us.
Yeah, and I downgraded quite of. I downgraded many routes, but not to be sad, not to be mean, but just to be
Right.
honest with me and the sport. And people was not taking it easy. Like it was just,
Yeah.
dude, it's just a game. It's just a sport. We are athlete and judge, and we have to give our opinion. And especially if girls did the route before, it's super hard to give an opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there is like this boys and girls aspect. It's hard. For example, I don't know, downgraded La Rambla after Margot did it. It should be
Right.
impossible. I don't
Yep.
want to downgrade La Rambla, but I mean, it's something, it's something harder. So giving his opinion is not always easy, but it's
Right.
important for the sport.
Yeah, and I think the way grades work, if you're giving your opinion, that doesn't necessarily mean that the route is that grade for everyone. That's how it felt
Yeah,
for
sure, sure.
you. And for Margot, it might have been slightly harder and might still be
Yeah,
the grade that she took on it. So it's not a it's not against the other climbers. It's just your honest opinion.
yeah, and I think, yeah, exactly. And I think the grade come from the sum of all the opinion. So
Hmm.
if on 10 climbers, one is thinking 9A and 9 are thinking 9A plus, the route should be 9A plus.
Right. Right.
And that's why it's super important to give his opinion. If you just take and say nothing, I mean, in high level climbing, I don't know, I'm going in change and I'm doing change with the knee pad, and I should say, hey, for me, it's it's maybe a bit easier than 9B+. Sorry, Adam, you're a friend, but
Right.
it's if you use knee pad, it's like that. Yeah, so you should give your opinion, and even if you think it's harder than the grade, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Have you seen Fred's artwork that he makes now?
Yeah, just only pictures, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really great representation of what happened with this controversy around Akira. I've seen some that are like half stone, half metal, and it looks like this creation, and he's creating stone, and it sort of speaks um, to the roots there in Eau Claire and to the controversy around Akira, everyone wondering if he chipped it or if he filled in holds, or
Mm,
there's so many myths around the route.
yeah, he's an artist.
Yeah.
He's Fred is an artist, but yeah, I would say controversy for me. I don't really care. I just wanted to
Yeah.
see Akira and climb it. So
Yeah.
that's the point.
I love that.
If you hear something, you hear like what happened, but if you accord too much importance of this story, I, I don't like this. I prefer like to just go climbing and climb the route and then give my opinion. And that's the most important for me.
Yeah. I think that's the way to go about it. What do you think Fred means to French climbing history?
It's hard to answer because I can't speak for all the climbing history, but for me, I think Fred was like a pioneer in his time because he had this uh, feeling that when he reached a level, he doesn't want to send another route of this level, but just go for the next level. So he was just trying to find the hardest line and the most spectacular line. And for me, that's inspiring. So I think somehow he was a big inspiration for everyone, even with this controversy of all these routes, because of like someone coming from nowhere and proposing such hard routes and inspiring routes. You know, it's part of sport, or of our sport, to be a bit under the radar sometimes. Climbing, at least in France, climbing came from like the underground, you know. It was not polished.
Yep. Yep. And I think a little bit of that competitive spirit is important. You know, I think it's part of what pushes the grades and the difficulty.
Yeah, sure. Like if you look at how Bukes was it, like it was just
Yeah.
a competition, all days competition. But I mean, there can be competitive, positive competitive spirit. It's not only negative points. I mean, being competitive can be really positive. It's just don't be sad and don't be angry about other.
Right. When I talked with Adam earlier this season, I asked him if having people out there like you and Jakob and Alex Magos and Stefano also doing routes at the same level was something that, you know, lit a bit of a fire under him and kept him going. And he said absolutely having those people, not only for the collaboration, but also for the competition was really important.
Yeah, sure. I think the point of view of Adam and mine are quite different because he was the number one for many years and still. So he needs people to push him, you know. He needs people coming to him and just I have to do harder. So I'm more from the other side, like this strong people were inspiring me and I say, I want to climb as hard as them. Because, for example, in 2013, I was climbing with Adam in Norway, 1 month together, bulking and climbing. And he was just trying 90 plus route and I was trying 90 route. So the gap was huge and it was just inspiring for me, like to see this strong guy and say, I would like to climb as hard as him or just to try this route and yeah.
I did an episode earlier this season about Action Direct versus Hubble. And in that episode, I talked with Alex Magos and Buster Martin, the only two people to do both. And the goal was less to decide which was the first 9A, but it was more to point out that the people at the top level at that time were all sort of working together to move climbing forward. And to me, it doesn't matter as much who is the best climber as it does that there are this group at the top who are working together to push things forward. And you, over the last few years, have certainly closed the gap between you and Adam that existed in Norway when you were there. Um, And now the two of you are up there at the top with a few other people pushing forward. I think that's beautiful. And looking at your last year or two, you've been crushing things. So
Okay.
I have to imagine both that competition and that collaboration is lighting a fire under everyone else.
Yeah. Thank you. And big things are coming. Big projects.
Yeah, you've got some big projects in the works, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to hearing more about them. And I can't thank you enough for doing this and for making the time.
Thank you.
And not only that, but for your Vintage Rock Tour videos as well. They've been so helpful to me throughout this season,
Nice.
trying to understand French climbing history. I think, and for your contributions to history, you've stepped up and made your mark in French climbing history, and I think that's really important. You're carrying on this image of the legendary French climber that the rest of us learned from Ed Langer and Catherine Destavel and the Les Menestrels, and I'm looking forward to a future season of this podcast in which I'm telling the stories of your greatest ascents. So thanks, Seb.
Thank you. I will try to continue as far as possible.
1, 2.
Okay, Written in Stone is produced by me, Chris Hampton, with help from Riley Rush and Emily Holland for Plugtone Audio, a group of the best, most impactful podcasts in the outdoor industry. At the link in your show notes, you'll find all the things you expect and probably some you don't, including links to Seb's Vintage Rock Tour, which you should 100% go watch. It's a fantastic blend of great climbing and interesting history. And look, this show is 100% rooted in the facts, but like Todd Skinner always said, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. And seriously, if you love what you're hearing, give us those 5 stars and a glowing review. The algorithm loves it, which means more people find it, which means sponsors will love it, which means we can make a season 2. And together, we can tell the stories of climbing's most important ascents, one decade at a time. Stoners. I didn't forget about you all last week. Something messed up with the file. I don't know. It's in there now. I don't know if you all saw that in the Patreon, but there actually was a Secret Stoners Club last week, and I just didn't know it wasn't attached to the episode until mid to end of the week. So next time you all are listening and there's no Secret Stoners Club at the end of a regular episode, somebody yell at me, because there's definitely one been recorded. It just didn't make it up there in the constant chaos of podcast episodes that I have going on over here. Honestly, I'm not sure how it didn't, because I have it checked off on my list that I put it in there. But, things happen. Anyway, it's there now, and it was a good one. So if you want to go back and listen, you should do that. But then again, I think they're all good ones. So it's up to you. You do you. I'm not going to tell you how to live. But I will tell you, shout out to John Durham, who is our newest supporter. And John is someone I met years ago in the Red. He was climbing with his son, Jonah, who is just an amazing human. John is an amazing human as well. And John, I appreciate your support. I appreciate you always giving feedback and just being who you are. Thank you. Hope to see you again soon. Also, we've gotten some requests for this, so I went ahead and I created a new $5 tier. That's the Rockstar tier. For $5 a month, you're a rock star. $10 a month, you're a legend. Both of those tiers will be getting the bonus episodes that will start shortly after this season wraps up. I have several ideas of things. In fact, I have a whole list of ideas. Don't you worry. I could keep us going in bonus episodes for the next several years, probably. I'm going to corral myself a little bit. I'm not going to do them all, but I could. And both tiers will be getting all of the bonus episodes. Everybody will be getting some. This Patreon is a free thing. I don't want to leave you all out in the cold. I want you to be able to talk about the history and about these things that have shaped the way we engage with climbing now for free. It doesn't have to be a paid thing, but money is one of the things that makes this thing possible, because I do have a family and a job, and I am spending an inordinate amount of time on this thing. Anyway, going on tangents. But isn't the whole Secret Stoners Club kind of a tangent anyway? Is that a tangent to a tangent? I don't really know. I just checked the poll right before I got on here. It's 52% 80s, 43% 2000s. We've got 91 total votes in there. Thank you all for voting. Also, thank you all for the reviews. I've read a few of them, which I don't normally do, but I did read a few, and they make me smile a lot. So thank you for the reviews. Particularly, I just wanted to shout out to Sandy Wilder for her review, because I remember sharing a cabin with Matt and Sandy in the New River Gorge years ago when Bays was just a tiny little thing, and now he's a crusher who sends all my projects in like on-site or second try, and I'm not mad at him for that. But Sandy, I'm glad you're pushing this thing toward Bays, and he's enjoying learning about the history as well. Thanks for that. All right, you guys, 2 days, Wednesday, Jonathan Segrist comes on to the podcast to talk about grades and the challenges of grading, because this whole Akira controversy revolves around the fact that Fred gave a grade that people just couldn't stomach. And for some reason, there's a visceral reaction to the number that Fred thought it was and Fred attached to it. And that number is this thing that blew the whole thing out of control. So Jonathan is coming on to talk about the difficulties in giving grades to first ascents and repeats as well, and how to downgrade respectfully, and how we can better have a better relationship in our climbing with the grades. All right, last but not least, I have several books in my possession. I have some other things we're going to be giving away in my possession, and we're just waiting on a few things from Tension Climbing. In the meantime, don't forget to use that code STONE over at Tension. That lets them know that you appreciate this thing, and they'll be far more likely to sign on for a season 2 if we make it worth their while. But giveaways coming soon. Stay tuned. All right. See you Wednesday.